Welcome back, Ascenders, to the Ascended Thoughts Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Crane. So let's dive into those thoughts. Let's dive into your thinking, because how you think is what shapes your life. Your experienced reality is actually a product of your own projection, it's a product of you. And so if you are perpetrating this sort of negative storyline, right? That's your storyline that you are living throughout life. You are the main character of this horror story. Then it is not a surprise that what you experience in life feels like it's like one bad thing after the other, and there's one shoe that keeps dropping after the other. You are actually in control of your reality. And when you are in a place in life where you feel so out of control, to hear somebody say that is almost like condescending. It feels kind of insulting to hear someone say, no, actually, you are in control when you feel like your life is so out of control, when you feel like so many things that are happening to you and you don't actually have an ability to stop it. But what is actually happening is that if you are in that position, you are just experiencing momentum. You are experiencing the momentum of negative thinking that has occurred over years since you were most likely a child. And then so it just picked up steam and now it's just rolling down the hill, and then it feels like it's hard to stop, right? And so if you think of, like, I'm going to use money as an example here because I think this is something that everyone can relate to. If you grow up in a household where your parents were always saying that money was hard to come by, or they would work really hard, maybe they were always working overtime, they were never in the house, and then they would get paid, and then you would watch them sit down at the kitchen table, pay all the bills, and then be broke again, right? Or you would ask for a toy, or maybe you just wanted to go hang out with your friends and you would ask for a couple of dollars, and the answer was always no, we can't afford that. And so it's this negative storyline that has started rolling down a hill. I know for me in my life growing up, there was this idea that just like money didn't exist, and that the money that we had was the money that we had. But now that I'm an adult, what I realized was that in the midst of that, there wasn't too many people who were like, okay, I'm going to change this narrative. It very much was like this accepted thing that it just wasn't there and that it didn't exist and that it wasn't possible for it to sort of show up, right? That after you got your paycheck, that was just all that you were working with. And I never really saw anyone really challenge the status quo of like, no, this isn't it. Like, this isn't all for me, right? Like, I'm there, like there's more money out there that exists and I'm going to figure out how to get my hands on it. No one really had that kind of thinking. And growing up, the friends that I had, they were all sort of, they didn't necessarily come from well-to-do families. Some friends obviously were maybe a little bit better off than others, but I definitely had just sort of regular run-of-the-mill like friends that I grew up with. And it was the same thing in their households. I always heard my friends say, well, let me ask my mom, but I don't know how she's going to feel about this question and how she's going to feel about this money question. And it's not her payday. Maybe I should wait. Like if we were plotting because we wanted to go do something as teenagers, I remember like as a child having these conversations with other kids, and we were like trying to plan around our family's money cycles. And that was as a child, right? And so when you're doing that as a kid, that is part of the development of a certain kind of thinking around things like money and resources, that it's hard to come by, right? Or that it's just not always enough, or that you're always running out of it, or that because it's scarce, that some things have to be paid late or maybe not at all, right? And with that, I realized that growing up, I and I think it depends on how you take this information, right? How you take the situation. But I remember being really repulsed by that. it was something that I was like, this isn't going to be my life. Like, this is miserable. Like, you're telling me that you like lived all these years on this earth and you are working all these hours and you're breaking your body literally and you're doing all of this labor and you're still broke. Like, you are never home. You don't even have enough money to take a vacation if you wanted to, right? Like, growing up, me and my mother never went on vacation. Like, even prior to her passing away, me and her never went away anywhere. And I grew up with my mother, right? So never had a vacation, never had a getaway, never even had like a, hey, let's jump in the car and drive an hour or two that way and then stay there for a weekend. We never did that. And growing up, I never had that experience. I didn't vacation for the first time until I was an adult on my own using my own money. And for me, like growing up, I just thought that that was wild. It just didn't make any sense to me to just be working so hard and have nothing to show for it, to reach the end of your life and you have nothing left, but you gave your whole life away to labor. And so for me, that was a turnoff. And I was like, this isn't going to work for me. Like, if I'm going to work, I need to have some money. If I'm going to work, I need to be able to visit a Gucci store here and there. I was like, this shit's for the birds. Like, this is awful. But on the flip side of that, not all of, well, actually, well, none of my friends, actually, thinking about it now, none of my friends had that kind of repulsion to it. They all kind of accepted it. And so growing up, when you look back on the people that you were friends with when you were in high school, they all live very modest lives now. Like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but there is definitely, their lives look very similar to the lives that their parents had. There was no sort of breaking out of the mold. Not that there's anything wrong with that for these people. They may love their lives. It's not that it's a wrong way of living. It's just noticing that a lot of times what happens is that people will accept the status quo and it doesn't occur to them that there's a different option. And the reason why it doesn't occur to people that there's a different option is because no one is there to tell you that there's a different option. And there is no example of somebody choosing another option. And so this is me saying to you that there's always another option. I'm using money as an example, but this is literally anything. This can be maybe where you live. Maybe you live in a small town and that's where your family has grown up, and then had the next generation who grew up, and then had the next generation who grew up, and no one really ventured outside of that. It could be a kind of work. Maybe there's a certain kind of work that has sort of stayed in the family. For example, I know a lot of nurses. I know a lot of nurses. Not that there's anything wrong with nursing, but I know nurses who were nurses because their mother was a nurse, right? And so they didn't know that necessarily that there was an alternative option for them. They just went to nursing school because their mother was a nurse. And then they now have this career and they are not happy with it or fulfilled by it. Not that it's not a noble profession, but because it was never that person's dream. Somebody else did it, and so they thought that they had to do it, and then now they're doing it, and they are living a life in which they cannot pursue their highest expression because it wasn't necessarily something that was originally their passion. But they just didn't know that there was another option. Some people say, well, I wanted to be, a fashion designer. I know people that say, well, I wanted to be in music. And then they'll say to me, that sounds crazy, right? And I'm like, why would that sound crazy? I mean, it didn't sound crazy for Beyonce. Didn't sound crazy for Jay-Z. Didn't sound crazy for Michael Jackson. Like, there are people who have to fill these roles. And then when you say this, they go, oh, no, 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 but you're talking about the greats. You're talking about like the highest of high. There is no highest of high. These people were able to take on these roles because somebody else was too much of a bitch to do so. Now, I know, strong language, I get it. But I'm saying it that way because sometimes that's what we are. Sometimes we are scared, we are nervous, we are insecure, we think that we can't do it, we are afraid that we'll be judged, We are afraid of rejection. We are afraid that someone is going to call us stupid or say that the art that we're producing is dumb or horrible, right? And so yeah, sometimes we'll have like this calling that's in the heart, but then we'll bitch out. And then because we're bitching out, we don't actually ever pursue it, and then it ends up in a situation where you end up in sort of a safe trade, and now you're a welder and you're like, how the hell did I get here? Because you didn't allow yourself to pursue the greatest expression of who it was that you actually are. But you have to make a choice, right? And this is where your thinking actually comes into play. You have to think it in order for it to happen, because you are the one that's actually producing your reality. Your reality is a projection of you and your state. So if you think something in particular, that is what will occur. Now, here is where people get stuck. People say, I hear you, Mystic Rain. I'm trying to change my life. And so I've been working on this. I've been working on thinking. And then so maybe you have been practicing new thought for 3 months. And then you feel like your life isn't changing in the way that you would like it to change. What you have to realize is that right now you have a certain kind of momentum that's going. And the momentum that's going was created most likely at some point in childhood, right? And if not childhood, definitely young adulthood. And this momentum right now is what you're actually seeing in your projection. It is the momentum of all of the negative thinking that you have had over the years, all of the negative self-talk that you have said over the years. It is watching other people perpetuate negative cycles and patterns over the years, and then you have most likely unconsciously taken those patterns on as your own. And all of that energy, because it's long-term energy, is in motion and it has momentum. And so, what you are doing, you will find one affirmation, and that one affirmation will say something like, I am wealthy, right? And then you will say it one time and think that that is strong enough to stop the boulder that is running down the hill. That's a runaway train. And you're like, I don't understand why this isn't stopping. Because you said one affirmation of I am wealthy and you didn't believe it. You said it, but you didn't think it. You said I am wealthy out of your mouth, but you didn't actually think that that was the case. You didn't think that that was true. You said I am wealthy, and then in your mind you crossed your fingers and you said, I hope so. But here's the thing about hope. Hope is unconscious compromise. And the moment you hope something, instead of knowing something, instead of thinking something as true, is the moment you just invalidate it. Now, this is counterintuitive for a lot of people because you're taught to hope, right? The church teaches you to hope, and hope is a good thing. And I'm not saying that it's not a good thing. What I am saying is that hope is unconscious compromise. The moment you say, well, I hope so, is that thing that you wanted, that thing that you thought that for a split second was true for you. The moment you introduced hope into the situation, you said, well, if it happens, you, in a way, unconsciously compromised your truth that you were previously holding. And by doing that, you made it untrue. I don't like to hope because hoping doesn't get me very far, but I like to know shit. I like to know that I'm about to walk into some money. Because every time I know, whenever I'm like, oh, I got a feeling, man, I'm about to walk into some money. I just know it. Whenever I just know, oh, I always walk into some money. But the moment I'm like, well, I hope I walk into some money, I just be waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And maybe I do, but maybe it's just a little $20. Not that like $20 can't be helpful. But that's not the money I wanted. That wasn't what I was initially talking about. I wanted a lump sum of something much bigger than that. But if I hope for it, then I unconsciously compromise with the universe. And the thing with the universe is that it's non-discriminatory. It is non-discriminatory and it is unconditional. And if you start compromising what you want with the universe, then you're not going to get what it is that you actually want. So this, you have to think it, and you have to think it as true. And it has to be true for you, and it has to be true in your reality. And if you think something, and let's say you share that with somebody and they say, oh, well, that can never happen. You have to understand that that may be true for them and their reality, but their reality is not your reality. If they want to be miserable in their reality, they are more than welcome and entitled to do so. But that's not you. That's not what you want. That's not what you want to experience. So you must think it true. You think truth and the truth is for you. And people say, well, but truth can have many sides. It's your side, it's their side, and then there's also the truth. Well, I'm not working with their side. I'm working with mine. And in my truth, this is what I think, and it is so. And because the universe is non-discriminatory and unconditional, it will be so. But it requires you to shift how you are thinking. People that are very successful have very strong minds. Very strong minds. And we as a society call those people stubborn. But I'm going to tell you something. I've never met a stubborn person that didn't get what they wanted, regardless of whatever it was that they were pursuing. If they wanted it, they got it, because the thinking for them, it was true. They thought it true. It's more than thinking positive thoughts. It's thinking it true. It has to be the truth. You want to say, I am living a positive life. You feel like, okay, life has been rough. I feel like I want to have a positive life. You have to think that true. It is truth that my life is positive. It is truth that I attract positive experiences. It is truth that only positive things happen for me, and that every situation that occurs in my life has a positive outcome. It is truth. What you're thinking is truth. You are framing it in truth. I think that affirmations are good in the sense that they get you almost there. And I think that it's a really solid stepping stone, because when you are dealing with people who don't know what they think, because many people don't know what they think because they are taught what to think, because that is a product of society. If everybody knew what they thought, that would be really, really, that would be a problem for the people trying to run the place. You know what I mean? You don't want to have all these independent thinkers out here. So the majority of people are taught what to think, whether they're taught by the school that they went to, whether they are taught by their parents or whoever their guardian is, whether they are taught by their government. The majority of people are taught what to think. And so that is why you end up with lives that feel so incongruent, that feel so out of alignment with who you are, why you feel like, oh my God, what happened? How did I get here? Because you weren't thinking, because you were living a life that wasn't conscious, because you were asleep, because you were turned off. But now that you're on and you are aware, you are now aware of the fact that, wait a minute, hold on, there are some metaphysical laws that are working around here that are at play, right? And so I'm trying to teach you how to use those laws to your advantage, right? One, you recognize that there's a universe. You recognize that there's a higher spirit, a God, the intelligence, the oversoul, whatever you feel comfortable calling that greater energy that we all identify with, but no one quite has a consensus on what to actually call it, right? Whatever you call that greater energy, you recognize that it's there, right? Once you recognize that it's there, it can be used to your advantage. And the reason why it can be used is because that greater energy is you. You are an aspect of that greater energy. You are the greater energy experiencing a piece of itself. You are the greater energy, right? And so because you are the spirit, that also makes you the law. Because you are the universe, that also makes you the law of the universe. And like I said, the universe is non-discriminatory and it is unconditional. So if you are the spirit and you are also the law, then what you say is what it is. What you think is what it is, because thought is creation and you are thinking things into existence, which is why your reality is your projection. And so you want to make sure you think correctly and that you utilize yourself, the law, correctly, because you yourself, the universe, is non-discriminatory. And if you say and think that you are going to have a hard life, because again, you are both the spirit and the law, you will then produce the hard life. And you say, well, I'm not producing it. Why would I ever want to make it hard for myself? Because you're doing it unconsciously. No one wants to consciously make things difficult for themselves. You're doing it unconsciously. You are creating that reality. If you want a different reality, you must think it untrue. So when things that are happening around you start to feel unpleasant, you have the power to invalidate it. You have the power to say, this is not true. I will not experience this in my reality. When you are at the dinner table on Thanksgiving, on Christmas with your family, and everyone's sitting there being, like hum and like messing with your joy and saying negative things, you can sit there at the table and think your truth, which is, I'm not allowing this to penetrate my field. It is a shame that they are allowing this to cloud their experience of life, but this is untrue for me. My truth is that I live a positive life. My truth is that I experience positivity all around me all the time in abundance. My truth is that every experience brings forth a positive result. That is my truth, and you must think it true. And you must think it true with all of your being. And that is the other part of affirmations that people don't teach. People teach you what to say, but they don't teach you what you're supposed to do with the information. What good is it to say, I am wealthy? You could put it in past or present tense because people will make sure you say it in present tense. Yeah, you can say I am wealthy in present tense, but if you feel broke, if you don't feel that, if you don't truly think that you would be able to get money or that people would give you money or that you can make a lot of money or generate a lot of money or generate resources or have things just come to you freely, if you don't really believe that, then you can repeat I am wealthy however many times you would like. No money is showing up for you. It's just not going to work. You have to think money. And you think money because remember, you are money. And I have an example because I heard this, I forgot who said it, but I heard it like on the internet, and I just thought it was the funniest thing, but it resonated so strongly. They were like, why do I have to pay for Earth? They were like, why do I have to pay for Earth when Earth is me? I am the Earth. And I was like, that is so funny. You think money because you are money. You are the universe. You are the spirit and you are the law. You are money. There is no, well, do I think that I can get my hands on it? Do I think it's going to come to me? No, you are money. Money doesn't have to come to you because that is what you are. You are money. You are literally anything that you actually want. And it doesn't have to be like tangible. It could be like you are love. You are a happy marriage because you are the universe. You are the spirit and you are the law. You are spirit experiencing a piece of itself. I'm going to say it again. You are the universe, the spirit, the oversoul, that greater energy, whatever you want to call that thing. You are that thing experiencing itself. So you want to be in a loving marriage? You are that thing experiencing a loving marriage. The loving marriage is you. It's not outside of you. And so when you start changing your thinking and recognize the reason why the things you want is true is because you are those things. You don't have to get those things. You don't have to find those things or get that situation or that circumstance or find that situation or that circumstance. You are that thing. You are that situation. You are that circumstance because you are the spirit and the law.